Hello, everybody. Happy Friday to you. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and this is the Breakthrough Show. Today is Friday, February 21st, 2025. I hope you are all doing well today. I've seen some of you guys. Friday's always a really busy day for us. We had Project Joy in the morning. We had co-working today. We have all kinds of stuff happening within the shows and the virtual community. So really glad and happy to have you guys here that stick around and come and hang out with us. You spend your Fridays with us here on the Breakthrough Show Network. I am so thrilled to be here with you today for what's sure to be a deeply moving and transformative conversation. Now, I want you to take a moment wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and just pause. Take a breath. Place your hand over your heart and ask yourself, how's your heart? This is a simple yet powerful question that has resonated with thousands of people across the world, and it's all thanks to my incredible guest today. He's an accomplished musician, a Grammy-nominated songwriter, a certified meditation teacher, and a mindfulness coach who has spent years helping people connect and reconnect with themselves through music, mindfulness, and introspection, which you know we love here on the Breakthrough Show Network. Since his last appearance on the Breakthrough Show back in season 5, we're in season 8 now. That was a minute ago. I'm sure that he has experienced some major breakthroughs of his own. And today we get to catch up and hear all about them. One of the things that makes his work so impactful is his ability to bring ancient mindfulness techniques into the modern world in a way that makes sense for all of us, whether it's through his viral How's Your Heart videos, his community of beautiful souls, or his powerful meditative journaling approach. Joel has made it his mission to help people slow down, tune in, and truly listen to what their hearts are telling them. Today, we're going to talk about his personal journey, the power of self-awareness, how music and mindfulness go hand in hand, and how we can all create a deeper sense of peace, clarity, and emotional well-being in our lives. I don't know about you guys, but I need some more peace this year. So we're definitely excited. So I invite you to sit with us in this moment, open your heart, and let's dive into a conversation that might just change the way you see yourself and the world around you. So, without further ado, please put your hands together and virtually welcome back to the show, Joel Cross. Joel, I am so excited to have you back on the Breakthrough Show today.
Oh, Jessica, I'm glad to be back. It's such an honor to be here.
I love it. I love it. I was listening to, I think it was, I guess season 5 was 3 years ago now. And so my daughter was, let's see, she was 6. My youngest was 6 at the time. And so I was playing your version of Shake It Off for her this morning because she loves her some Taylor Swift. And I was like, do you know this song? And she's listening and she's like, it's this Taylor Swift song. So I love that even to see the growth of the network and my kids and everything since the last time someone's been on. And so thank you for providing another touch point for me to see the growth in that amount of time. But for those of people that may be new to you, why don't you reintroduce yourself today? And I think instead of asking, what's your meaning of breakthrough, I'll ask you today, Joel, how's your heart?
Oh, well, my heart is so full and light and bright. I think I told you earlier, I woke up at 4 a.m., I usually wake up pretty early, but I woke up about a half hour earlier than normal and was just in my space, enjoying my flow, doing some reading, and had an extended meditation practice, and was just elated to be alive. Such a gift to be here, just full of gratitude. And deep gratitude to be back here with you. So thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I've been sharing a lot recently about we're in a different time now. I think when you and I were younger, we didn't really, internet wasn't real popular. Like it wasn't even a thing at some point. And so we are just inundated now with so much information and breaking news and panic and war and all of this stuff, that I think that there's never been a better time to have people like yourself come on and remind people that there's still something to be grateful for despite all of the stuff that's going on around us. How do you manage to stay grounded with just like one thing after another? And do you ever have freak out moments because you're so peaceful? So I just need to know your perspective.
Well, I certainly do have moments of the overwhelm or the breakout
Mhm.
moments. And it's not that those, go away. We're
Mhm.
still on this human journey. But I think it's all about remembering that at any point in time, we can redirect our energy back towards the things that we really value
Mhm.
and also take control of our emotional stability. So in moments where I am, kind of pushed to one side or the other and a little off kilt, I can just come back to center with a mindful breath. And so
Right.
for me, what that looks like, in this modern age when everything is so in your face,
Yeah.
it's about okay, remembering I'm not just a receiver of this life, but I'm a co-creator. So
Mm.
what am I bringing to this moment, right? And what am I experiencing? So if I'm feeling something from a post or feeling drained, I stop. I literally have to turn my phone over because sometimes you can just scroll and you like turn it off and then you turn it back on.
Yeah. Yep.
So I turn it over and I just pause and I tune in to my energy and I check in to see, okay, do I feel balanced? What's my heart rate feeling like? Do I feel a little anxious, a little unrest? Or
Mhm.
do I feel frustrated or upset at something? And usually, if I've been scrolling, I may not feel very restful. So, whatever the other response is, I take a moment to be curious about it. One of my favorite acronyms is curiosity, openness, acceptance, and love, COLE.
Mhm.
And it was created by Dr. Dan Siegel. And it's just a good way to return home to your heart. So, I get curious about my state of being, right? And I stay
Yeah.
open to it. I don't resist it. Usually that's why we're online. It's because we're resisting. We're trying to be louder than our inner noise.
Yeah.
And then I find acceptance for myself. Okay. All right. Joel, you're a little frustrated or annoyed with this thing at this moment, right? Or a little sad. And so how can I respond with love? And I always ask myself, what is the most loving response I'm available for? Right. So what capacity
Mm.
do I have in the moment? And usually it just means, okay, I'll leave, the social media off for a moment and I just take a walk.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we gotta step away because social media in itself can be so loud and so overwhelming, and everybody has an opinion and everybody has their own commentary and take on things, which I think sometimes people forget that right, wrong, or indifferent, that's their perspective. It's their life that they're living, which may be very different from our lives and our perspective. And I think that's something that's often forgot. Um, you ask this question on your videos, how's your heart? And I think it invites people to pause and truly check in with themselves. But in a world that prioritizes productivity really over presence, many people, I feel like, struggle to even answer that question or start. What is the most surprising or unexpected response that you've ever received to this question, if anything? Has anybody ever been like, I've had this huge breakthrough just by checking in with myself?
Mm, you know, so I'll tell you two things. I think one, the most common response is, why am I crying? You made me cry. Just asking
Mm.
that question, which I find interesting because of course, I didn't make anyone cry, but as soon as they pause, they realize that there's some emotional something there that is ready to be released.
Mhm.
And for me, it just reminds me that we need to create space for our emotions,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We have to feel it to heal it and we let it out. And so that question is an invitation to create space for your emotions, right?
Mhm.
So that's like the most common, which I love because
Yeah.
that's a big part of the reason I do it is to create that space. and to normalize it and to let go of the taboo around being emotional and vulnerable.
Mhm.
But I think the most surprising response was actually, I don't know, somewhere in the last month, someone wrote, they said something to this effect. The first time I saw you, I thought, this guy's creepy. He's weird. I don't know what's going on. Like, what is he doing? Is he on something? And then they said, it's 6 months now that I've been following you and I do this with you every day and I get it. And it's transformed my life.
Mhm.
Like I feel more calm and more grounded. And so thank you. Thank you. And they said to
Yeah.
anybody else who doesn't get it, just sit here and put your hand on your heart and show up again and again. And that
Yeah.
for me was, it was so rewarding to
Mhm.
see the transformation of someone who was averse at first.
Right. Right. I think what you're talking about really requires some sort of willingness to be open within a person. Because I even within my own family, my children, things like that, especially with children, a lot of times you'll say, they'll have a problem and you'll say, okay, try this, and they'll be like, well, I tried that once, it didn't work. And we know with things like meditation, affirmations, a lot of things like don't just do it. And it's not like this magic switch that happens one time. So I feel like there's almost there needs to be something within the person that is willing to really give it a shot. Like,
Yeah.
follow it through like that person did 6 months later. That's amazing.
hmm hmm Yeah, there's definitely that bit of resistance. Our modern society has kind of made everything so black and white, right?
Yeah.
Or we want this like quick response, right? A pill for every ill. I want to feel better now.
Right.
And it's like that's normalized in our society.
Mhm.
But there's nothing natural about it. Like
Right.
everything in nature has seasons and patterns and rhythms. And also, it takes a while to cultivate a new skill. What
Mhm.
we're really talking about is emotional resilience,
Uh,
right? Being able to show up to life's difficulties, not trying to run from everything, not thinking that everything always has to be perfect, right? Because that's its own pitfall. But learning how to show up to the difficult and challenging with a sense
mhm.
of resilience to go, oh, I've, teetered this way and I'm really upset right now
Yeah.
or sad or whatever it is. So how do I come back? And the thing is, it's not about never going to this side of your emotions, but it's
Mhm.
about learning how to come back to center with more ease, right?
Mm.
You got to come back to center with more ease because that's
Yeah.
reality. Like life's always going to throw you a curveball. That's
Right.
just the nature of existence. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
think sometimes too, when people get into starting these new routines, whatever it is, whether it's meditation or just checking in with yourself, I think sometimes we might lack a little bit of patience. We think, oh, it's just things are going to change right away, and sometimes it takes a while to create that routine and to create that space. Even just giving yourself permission. When you were talking about how the person was saying like, I just didn't get it at first. Now I really get it. It goes back to something we talk about often here on the network, which is our innate desire as humans to feel seen and heard and valued as a human being. And I mean, even there's two parts of this. One, when's the last time someone truly asked us, like, how are you really? And then the other part of that is with us, not asking ourselves that question, or like that it's okay to
right.
ask ourselves that question, and to because we may have grown up where someone goes like, that's selfish, or that's, you're focusing too, don't you care about other people, or whatever it is. And so I think just that permission to um, give ourselves a space to check in, and reminds us too to check in on other people. That was the other thing I was going to say, is how many times have we said to another person, how are you, but we expect them to just be like, oh, I'm okay, thanks, how are you, and move on. And I've had a couple moments like that where I'm trying to get myself out of saying like, oh, I'm okay, and moving on, and really be honest. And some people are caught off guard by that. They don't want you to go on for half an hour
Yeah.
about all your stuff. And so I do you feel like we can do a better job as humans for making that space for each other?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. But there's also an aspect of it it's not just as humans, but systemically, right?
Mm,
Think about the way our society's set up currently, at least in
right.
the US. We're all so busy going,
Mm,
working our 40 hours a week, mothering, fathering,
yes.
partnering, that in the in-betweens, we're so busy thinking about the next step, we don't even have the systemic support to slow down.
Mm,
Whereas, if I think of Spain, they'll have 2 and 3 hour lunch
yes.
and dinner breaks, right? Where everybody goes home, the whole town stops,
Siesta
everybody,
time.
they eat and nap and then go back to work with their
Yeah.
families, right? So it's a different system that they're in.
Mm,
And so, trying to let people know that, hey, you don't have to put it all on your shoulders. It's part of what's happening in our society, so they don't feel so guilty. But
right.
return to it with a sense of balance and understanding that ultimately this is a systemic issue. But how do we, within what's happening in our world,
Mm,
become more present and balance that with, oh, you know what? Let me talk to this friend before I cut them off, right? Or
mm,
all of these things that kind of happens in this rigid world. Because what I've realized is that because of the system, we're all right on the edge, right? We're in a low level um, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. And it just takes
right.
that one thing. That's what road rage is. Everybody's right on the edge because the day's been crazy or, whatever it is, home life or work life. And it's just that one little thing, right?
Right.
And so bringing it back to center to say, okay, it's been a day. I'm going to use this moment for conscious growth and healing
Mm,
exchange with my X, Y, and Z person. Right. And you do that through like a self compassion mantra. It's one of my favorite things lately that I share. It's created by Dr. Kristen Neff. And it's
mm,
a statement that you say to offer yourself compassion, but also create a space for others. Right. So the acronym for that is MIC, right? MICK, mindfulness, intention, connection, and kindness.
mm.
Mindfulness is just self awareness to go, okay, I'm triggered right now. Whatever it is, right? And then the intention is to say, may I use this moment for a learning experience, right?
Mm,
Not self judgment, not self hatred, not self loathing, but for learning and growing.
right.
And then the connection is to not isolate yourself, to remember everyone goes through a difficult moment in life, right?
Right.
Because so often when we're triggered, we'll isolate. And then finally, kindness, how can I treat myself kindly? So you create this mantra through these 4 steps, which helps. It's one of those easy ways to bring you back to center.
Right.
The world's still worlding.
Yeah.
But
Isn't the world always that? It's gonna keep going no matter what.
yeah,
Um,
but you get to sit back in your seat with a bit of more compassion, kindness, and,
right.
you know, make it through your day.
Right, right. Brittany is out there in the audience today, and so thank you for being here, Brittany. And she brought up something that I was going to mention as well. I love that you mentioned communicating with someone instead of just cutting them off. I think that's so
Mhm.
important, and we are seeing that in droves right now. As soon as someone doesn't agree, especially as we talk about politics and some of the more heated things like that, we're like, just don't go anymore. Don't meet with them. Don't cut them
Yeah.
off. That's it. And we're missing that big communication piece. And the interesting thing is, I went out to brunch yesterday. I mentioned with you that I moved back here to Connecticut a couple years ago, where I grew up. So I went to brunch yesterday with a girl that I went to elementary and middle school with, and so it's been a long time. But I did see her recently because a mutual friend of ours passed away. So I saw her at the funeral, and we were having a conversation about how challenging it's been for me since I've been back because we like to say things as people like, oh, I can't wait to get together, and oh, if you almost only lived closer, we would be getting together more often. And so I moved back here, and I'm thinking my calendar is going to be so full, I'm going to be getting together with people all the time, and
Mhm.
that's just not what's happened.
Yeah.
And so her and I were talking about the importance of communication. And I said, I get so frustrated when we say we want things, we promise things, we say all these things, but then we don't have the action to back them up. And I said, look, I'm a really understanding person. I would rather schedule something in, make our relationship a priority, and then, one of the kids gets sick, picking up the phone and
Right.
saying, hey, my kid's sick, can we reschedule or something like that, than to not try at all and just use the same old excuse we've been using, which is I'm busy.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. I mean, you hit it on the head. I think it's very common, right? Just with the how are you? And then you answer
Mhm.
authentically and people aren't
Right.
ready for it, right?
Yeah.
Because you realize that we're all just going through the motions
Right.
unconsciously, right? And it
Yeah.
happens 95% of the time. 95% of what we do is a subconscious thing that we're on autopilot. And
Mm.
so it's understandable, also unfortunate, right, that those things
Right.
happen. But I think just what you're describing, being intentional, being conscious to say, hey, I know you're busy. I know you've got, your children and other responsibilities, but I value our relationship and I would love to connect. I'm thinking about next Tuesday to connect, at the
Yeah.
restaurant or whatever. And like schedule it, make it happen, be proactive, and hopefully
Right.
people can meet you there. But I think along the way, we get so black and white with everything.
Right.
We don't realize that we're also in our triggered response, right?
Mhm.
Our fight or flight. And we usually
Yeah.
just choose flight, like we're done with this person.
Yeah.
I've been there myself, not not trying to shame anybody. I'm just saying it's something we all experience.
Mhm.
And in that space, it's important to remember I get to choose how I want to dance with this experience because
Mhm.
all of us are in a dynamic shift moment to moment, right?
Mhm.
And if like anyone, right, you might have a specific time where okay, I can ask mom like now because her emotions are in this space where she's going to be more amenable to like let me go to the movies.
Yeah.
We do this with our partner, we do this with our children, we do this with everyone,
Mm.
right? So we know this, so understanding that what we receive from someone in a moment may not be the hard finite truth, right?
Mm.
They're just in this state. And what we experience in the moment may not be the hard finite truth either. We might be in
Right.
a state that we are likely unaware of many times, right? Especially if
Right.
we're like anytime we're in a space where we're trying to be very dualistic, we're probably in a fight or flight situation, right? We're in
Right.
limiting beliefs of some kind. So
Mm.
if we can dance with the full spectrum, I don't even say gray, I just say the full spectrum of
Yeah.
color and emotion and existence and say, hey, this is where I am. This is what I'm processing through right now. And this is also what I want. What are you processing through? I don't think I even know what's going on in your mind. It's clear that this person may have a very limiting belief that I have kids, I don't have a life, you know,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Which is normal for a lot of parents because they get
Right.
overwhelmed because that's a big job,
Right.
right? But to communicate, it's an opportunity for all of us to grow in our communication, expectation, the way we build community with one another,
Yeah.
right? And not say, well, you have to be all or nothing, in or out, and go so tribal to forget that we're we're already family, we're already community, we're already circle.
Yeah.
Like it's okay if we don't agree on everything, but
Right.
let's find that happy space where we can enjoy each other and add richness
Right.
to our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have so much more to talk about. We're going to go to a quick break. And I want to remind everybody that all of Joel's links are down in the show notes. So make sure you go check those out, but not yet, not until the show's over. I'm going to play the trailer really quick for our film that came out last November. And we'll be right back more with Joel after this.
Caldwell Williams. On April 4th, I was 90 years old, grandson of slaves. My parents were first generation free. A long time ago, I embraced the definition of love. Love is the experience of well being, and a friend is one who mutually shares that experience of well being with you, which opens up almost infinite creative possibilities.
Someone who is there to support you, someone who is is willing to go through the ups and downs of life with you.
Connection, but also the opportunity for learning and deeper connection.
If I don't talk to that person for 2 months, we pick up the phone like we've never stopped talking. To me, that is what a friend is.
Friend to me is someone I can share my joys, also the struggles I have.
Friend means somebody that you can talk to and that you can trust.
So a friend to me is actually someone really, really close, an inner circle person.
And I think it's an important discussion to pass on to other generations so they don't get caught being lonely at the end because they haven't thought about friends in different ways.
I need your shoulder. I need you, friend. No wise words or reason. I just need someone I can depend on. 'Cause I'm crumbling and slowly falling. Can you catch me?
Welcome back to the Breakthrough Show. Please visit thefriendshipparadox.com to view our film, leave a review, donate, all that fun stuff. We're back here today with Joel Cross. And I was just thinking as that was playing, one of our good friends on the network, Olivia Ambani, sang that song for the film called Shoulder. And you two, I need to connect you guys because it would be like so amazing. So amazing. She's incredible. So Brittany was talking about something in the comments a few minutes ago before we went to break, and it was something that I was going to bring up too. She asked about how did you get to that point with yourself in learning to check in and redirect? Did you just wake up one day and decide, or did it become a practice? Was there something that happened? And I was thinking about, for me, when that happened, it was because of all of these grief experiences that I kept having. The first, I mean, I'd had several growing up, but when my brother died 15 years ago and he was 24, like that really just shoved me into a space of presence. Like just that, you know, our mortality is one thing that'll really just hit you hard. So was there a moment like that for you when things shifted, or have you just always been like peaceful Joel?
You know, it's really been a gradual journey, I think. I'm definitely always been an introvert. That's just kind of who I am, this kind of laid back person. But I haven't always been gentle with myself. And I think for me, that journey started really when I was in college. I had this big heartbreak and I couldn't sleep for a couple of months. And in the middle of the night one morning, I found journaling. You know, it had been everywhere kind of intuitively, synchronistically. And I was like, guys don't journal. What is that? That's not, you know, that's where my head was at when I was like 18 years old. But, you know, after not sleeping, I said, okay, whatever. And I started writing that night. And I just wrote everything that was in my mind. And I put it on the page. And I didn't have any great epiphanies or anything, but just having a space for it. Right. I laid back in bed. I remember I passed out and had the best night's sleep I'd had in months. And I just kept coming back to the journal at first, right? And so I spent years journaling, being curious, didn't have a framework or anything for it, but it really was the curious openness, acceptance, and love kind of tenets of mindfulness. And I would ask myself questions like, well, why am I mad about this thing and that thing? And it helped me to be objective about my experience. But even if I got to something really heavy, a hard truth about myself or something that was very challenging to be with, I could never like close my journal without in some way encouraging myself or having a
Mm.
already thought. It didn't feel right to just say, "Oh, well, this is what really happened, Joel. You you messed up," you know. I couldn't leave it there. I was like, "Well, that's the terrible note to end on." And so I would continue writing, and it would always, end up, okay, well, now that I know it, I can do something about it. And this is what
Mm.
I want. And when I get there, this is how I'm going to feel, right? And along the way, I'm going to remind myself of this
Mm.
because I know what it's like to dwell on that heavy thought, and it doesn't lead me anywhere I really want to be, right? And so that was kind of my gentle thing that happened in my journaling, and now that's become the Rise journal that I shared a few years ago. And then I found meditation, like seated traditional meditation,
Mm.
oh my, 5 or 6 years later. And that brought me to a whole other space within this, in the context of gentleness and understanding, realizing that in the moment I can just be silent and sit with whatever's coming up for me and allow it to be, right? What our struggle is that we're trying not to suffer.
Mm.
And we don't realize we're fighting with water, and the more you push it, the
Yeah.
more turbulent it gets. And that's how it is with our minds. And so learning to just sit and allow it to flow, allow the thoughts to come through. Okay, that's an interesting one. You realize at a certain point, it's a thought. It isn't necessarily you, right? And so that's why the concept of attachment is so interesting. So noticing the thing that triggers me, I have an attachment to in some way. We blame it on the other person solely, but it isn't just them, right?
No.
They did what they did. I'm not giving anyone a pass, but how you feel about what they did is on you,
Mm.
right? You can disapprove of their actions without losing yourself in a rage, right?
Right.
Or trying to
Right.
control them in whatever X, Y, and Z way. That's
Yeah.
about your attachment, right? And there's something there underneath the surface. And so if we start taking responsibility for what's happening, I realize that the only way to kind of like peel back the soil around that weed in my inner garden is with gentleness, because I have to get to the root. Otherwise, I'm going to struggle, right? You come
Mm.
into a weed whacker, you
Yeah.
think about it, and it's going to be back in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So the way I've gotten there gradually is through the hard learned lessons of experience, along
Mm.
with grief and all the full range of our human experience. And
Right.
I've noticed that anytime I go in gently with myself, I tend to stay in the experience that I want to have, which is ultimately about being happy, calm, peaceful. So if I can approach my frustration with myself with a level of openness and acceptance, that is the embodiment of love.
Mm.
Accepting to whatever is happening without condition, right?
Yeah.
We always qualify it these ways these days. Unconditional love. There's not another kind. That other thing you're talking about is this barter system. That's why we're cutting people off, because you didn't love me right. You didn't do this right. We didn't have this exchange, right? That's a bartering system. So
Yeah.
coming back to recognize, oh, I didn't unconditionally stay open and accepting. Doesn't mean you always have to agree that your relationship is going to maintain whatever kind of status it has in the past, right?
Mhm.
But you can still love someone and let them go, right? If you
Yeah.
need to. But learning along the way, just back to the question, which was like, how did I come to this gentle space of being? It's just through practice. I recognize, oh, my mind's going there. Okay, what is that actually about?
Mm.
Right? And so I relax, and then I start looking at the root of the issue. And that's just been a gentle practice. That's why I meditate every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that mindfulness and meditation are at the center of your work. But I think for a lot of people, sitting in silence or slowing down can feel even more terrifying for them than healing. In your experience, what do you feel like is the biggest internal resistance that people face when they begin this work? And what's it been like for you to witness those moments where they kind of break through and they're able to do it?
I think the greatest barrier is, what's two things. I think on one hand, you've got this knowing, right?
Mm.
Or rather expectation, right? So this is what I think meditation has to be, where I'm just always going to be on this Zen cloud, floating like a monk in a cartoon,
Mhm.
right? Or sitting under this tree for hours, and that sounds hard.
Mhm.
And then the other point of resistance is that I don't want to suffer, right? So most people, because they have this expectation of meditation, and when they slow down, that feels harder because they're bored and they feel, unrest, then people run. But I think coming back to it with a level head to say, one, that's not really what meditation is. Meditation is just attention with intention, right? And so instead of your attention being outward on other people, saying they're the reason you feel a certain way, which is really codependence, right? You turn your attention toward yourself with the intention of learning, healing, and growing, right? And so when you pause and you slow down and I feel uncomfortable, if I do that, what's making me uncomfortable? My own energy. It's just me here.
Oops.
It's a hard pill to
That's a
swallow.
hard thing.
Yeah. So people resist it. I'm just giving you the cold truth of it. It's like, oh, but it's not that you are X, Y, and Z thing, right?
Right.
It's unprocessed hurt because we live in this busy world.
Yeah.
Right. And it usually stems from childhood, right? Because we're always trying to control our environment, which is we don't feel safe. So we're trying to do it it's like I have 3 acres of woods here. It's like me trying to go out here and carpet the whole woods so I don't step on a rock, right? Instead of just putting shoes on. So if I go inward and recognize, okay, when I'm still and it's just me and I don't feel good, what is that? What's under the surface of that feeling? Get curious about it. Nothing's wrong. See that, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Nothing's wrong. I don't feel good. You never had a cold before? It's an emotional cold or an emotional virus, right? That we just need to tend to, right? And so once we slow down and allow ourselves to feel it, it gets to move through our system. It's one of the feel it to heal it is so true. Like having a good cry, to me, I had to reframe it. Like it's one of the strongest things you can do. Because when you cry, it's transformation. It's not just, okay, water's coming out of my eye and I'm sorrowful, right?
Right.
But it's literally my hurt is being transformed into the most amazing substance on earth, water, which can hold any form, supports life. It's literally the sign of life, right? So now my hurt is being transformed into the foundation of life and vibrance, right? Yeah.
That's the most beautiful thing I have ever pictured in my. Because I think we feel some kind of way about crying or expressing ourselves in that way, and when we can reframe that, gosh, that's just
So that's the barrier, right? It's the expectation. It's the ego that says, oh, I know that's not going to work. I know I don't have time to go spend with my friend because I have kids or whatever thing it is. When the fact of the matter is, no, you just created a wall, which is actually becoming a barrier to a rich life. It becomes a cell. But if you remember that you don't know and that there's something underneath the surface of your experience, you can shift your perspective. And so for me, that's why these reframes are so potent, because it's mindful awareness. Goes, is it only that? Yes, I have kids, but also I can carve out an hour for lunch, like every whenever. Or yes, I have a busy work life, but I can do a 5-minute meditation between this meeting and the next meeting.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all of these barriers that we put to avoid what's really underneath the surface. And over a while that builds up until you have the road rage moment, or you blow up on a partner, friend, or something,
right?
Because you haven't taken time to be with yourself. So I would say, one, let go of your expectations. It's attention with intention. I meditate when I'm writing. I meditate when I'm making tea, right? It's one of the reasons I share the How's Your Heart, because I wanted people to experience it without all the expectations. Like you're in scroll mode, and so you're just in like receptivity mode, and then a video pops up and you're like, what's this?
It's become a habit though for me too. Like I see your face, I know what's coming. It's time to check in with myself.
Yeah, wonderful, right? And that's I wanted to make it accessible and easy because one of the biggest shifts for me was when I found micro meditation, which is what the House Your Heart videos essentially are. You know, you take a few breaths to a minute or two and you check in with yourself and you set an intention, right? It doesn't have to be, okay, I'll see you guys next week. I'm going to go sit in silence in a cave in Nevada or something, you know? We do this dramatic thing.
Mhm.
In reality, like for a lot of us, we have our mindfulness practices. We just don't call them that, right? You may slow down
Right.
when you're making dinner and you're just in this zone, you're in this flow. Maybe you're chopping vegetables, right? And you're stirring the pot. Like I get into that space sometimes. That's a
Yeah.
moment for mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
You're enjoying it. You're totally present to that action, right? That experience without being anywhere else. And there's peace there. And you recognize it's where I'm placing my awareness, right? So remembering that, oh, okay, there's all these things going on. I can expect this and I can expect that. This is all me being in the future. I'm just future pacing. In reality, the future will take care of itself. I'm right here, right now. What's the most important thing? What do I need?
Right.
You can just ask that. That's a moment for mindfulness.
Right.
And be
Right.
sincere about it, right? And you connect to center. I do that all the time, right? I can get wrapped up. Like I love mindfulness, but I also now I have a business and I have staff and
Yeah.
conversations, and there's a lot of energy happening, and
Right.
it's all with great intention, and it's easy to, fall off balance, and then you go, oh wait, what's the most important thing, right?
Right.
Then you come back.
Yeah.
So just remembering that sitting with yourself is bringing you back to life. It's transforming that hurt into life, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that for me is the game changer.
Mm.
Then once you get beyond that point, you start having these really amazing experiences. Like I've had experiences where I felt like I was like high with joy
Mm.
sitting.
Yeah.
Not long, it was like 5 minutes. It was like, wow. It was like, what was in this tea I had before I meditated? And there wasn't anything, right? And so there's a beautiful aspect on the brighter end once you develop a practice and kind of work through some of the heavier emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you're talking about when you talked about creating spaces for things. We recently, we're coming up on 1 year, so I guess it wasn't that was in Alabama a minute ago. So like a year ago, we created this virtual community to go with our shows and things like that. And one of the beautiful things about this space was I have to show you our music room because you would just love it. Anyway, and you're in there, so that's great. So we created this space, and every room you go in, our meditation room, our co-working room, all these spaces just are so visually appealing that when we're used to these sort of like here we're in a box, and on Zoom we're in a box, and we have to kind of use our imaginations a little bit more. But it has become such a joy for me to create these spaces based on our experiences to really bring us to that place. Like we're not just going there in our mind, we're there together, And so now, even as I've done that with these virtual spaces, I've been thinking about like, where else can I create spaces? And some of what you're talking about just resonates with me so much. When I go in to my kitchen and I have plans to make a lasagna or something like that, like my granny did, now instead of just going in and throwing it together and putting it in the oven, I'll turn on some Frank Sinatra like my granny did, or some Tony Bennett, and just get in the whole vibe. And I think when you really just commit to making it a whole experience and not just like, well, let's see how quickly I can get in and out of meditation today, I think it just transforms everything for you.
Totally. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's the most powerful thing. I had a hand injury in my mid-20s. I played jazz guitar and was just doing too much.
Oh, I remember you talking about that on the last episode. So go back and watch that too, you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened, but along my healing journey, I found this book called Effortless Mastery. And it was about creating a sense memory with your instrument, right? And so throughout my traumatic experience with my injury, I had all of these limiting beliefs, like music is hard and heavy and all of these things.
Yeah.
To shifting through these meditations to, oh, music is easy. It should be as effortless as breathing, right? And building yourself up with all these affirmations. And the beautiful thing was you said these affirmations, you went through this practice, but you changed your state of being to one of being in ease and flow and confidence and courage and openness. And you had to be in this state before you picked up your instrument. And every time you did that, you created a sense memory with your instrument, right? And so the same way you're talking about, like making this ritual out of cooking like grandma used to do, right? Putting on the Frank Sinatra and all the things. We do this all the time, except we do it unconsciously. And we don't realize we're creating the opposite kind of sense memory with some spaces, right? You walk into work,
Yeah.
right? All of these things, because you're in resistance and you're forgetting one simple fact, that each moment is new. Maybe a familiar pattern, maybe a familiar space, but the moment is new. And you get to decide how you meet the moment. And so when you come back to your center and consciously choose, okay, I'm going to enjoy my work today. I already know this person is going to be that way. I don't have to be a victim to them, right? Or their energy or their expression. I can accept them for who they are and recognize that my frustration is with whatever it's triggering from my past and the storytelling. And I get to tell a new story today. And I can create a new sense memory with this person. Right? Even for a lot of people, it can be hard because no, they're always going to be this way. Yes, they probably are. Doesn't mean you always have to respond the way you do.
Right.
That's the kicker, right? And you get to create a new sense memory. So in the same way, right, creating these rituals with everything that you go into, recognizing that what is my state of being? That's why How's Your Heart is so powerful. Because we live in such a mechanical world. We always think in terms of form and things around us. We don't think in terms of states of being. What state of being do I want to be in when I pick up my instrument, when I cook, when I go to work, when I record a podcast or a show or whatever it is that you're creating? Because that is the secret sauce. That's the happiness, right? That's the gold. That's what my work is all about at the end of the day. Your state of being, even when you're experiencing some of the most challenging life things. Because once you learn that emotional resilience kicks in. Oh, well, then you can dance with life. That's the monk, floating in the cloud. It's because he knows no matter what's happening, I can choose how I want to experience this. Even the sorrow, even the heaviness, right? There's no one way to experience it. One of my most enlightening moments was I experienced great betrayal in my life. And I was at the point where I was like way off center, like like frustrated with this individual. And there was a moment where they kind of checked out. And I realized, like, okay, well, I can really go off the deep end now. And I can pause. And something kicked in from my practice, because I didn't consciously choose it, but something kicked in. And I just stopped where I was. And I took a deep breath. And I spent about 10 minutes just saying, I release the need to suffer. I release the need to make this person wrong and myself right. I release the need to be a victim in this experience, in a victim state of being, a state of mind. I release the need to go on suffering when there is sun shining today. And I did this like for 10 minutes, just as every way I might express that. And I felt light and bright and free. And I realized I can catch myself and I can choose. What they did is what they did. It still is not morally correct, in my opinion. But I'm not holding the weight as the judge and arbiter of this individual. Right? I've released them. I forgave them. And I remember I just went on this walk. I had this amazing walk in the woods, and I was just, everything was so vivid and green, full and bright. It's a beautiful day. And I was giddy with laughter. And it's like, okay. And since that day, anytime something happens, I can get there fairly quickly, even if it's big. And I hope to help others get there as well. because ultimately life's too short to be miserable.
Right.
And once we learn that we have this power to choose how we experience even life's greatest challenges, there's a great freedom in that. But we also get to bring that to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a regular attendee of one of our events on Saturdays who we were talking before we came on air today, you guys, about the weather and how cold it is in some places and colder than normal in other places. And so she moved to Georgia, and this was like, it got really cold all of a sudden, and there was all of this snow, and she found herself grumbling about like, oh my God, it's just so cold. This is horrible, you know. And she came across this post on Facebook that made her stop and really think. And it said, the snow is still going to be there even if you choose not to enjoy it.
Bingo.
And she was like, oh. Okay. So these are the moments when I'm like, yay, social media for pulling us out of, you know, that stuck space that we're in. But it's so true. I mean, we can choose to grumble, or we can, you know, shift that for us. But I'm going to write that down. I release the need to, because I think that's that phrase in itself, and insert whatever you want after that. I think that's we hold ourselves back by that. We feel like we have to respond a certain way, or we have to behave a certain way. We're going to take one more super quick break. We're going to listen to, since we've been on this, you know, topic of love lately and all of that, we're going to listen to Dorothy's For a Love poem, and we'll be right back to finish up with Joel after this.
I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart. I shall stand for love, for the world is wounded, not just my little piece of land, where I am mostly safe, where I'm mostly well, but our world, everywhere, every day. I shall stand for love, because we need more light, not more death, not more power, not more bombs. I shall stand for love, so that our children are safe, so that our friends are sheltered, so that our borders are open. I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart.
Welcome back to the Breakthrough Show. Thank you for standing for love with us today. We are here with Joel Cross today. We've had a beautiful conversation about mindfulness and meditation, and just taking a breath. Just taking a breath. I have never felt so calm during a show. I'm just like, what's coming next? I have no idea, but this is great. I love it. I cannot let this hour go by without talking about music for a moment, because that's such a huge part of who you are, not just as a Grammy-nominated artist, but as someone who uses sound as a tool for healing. Have you ever experienced a moment for yourself where a single note, a lyric, a sound frequency completely shifted your emotional state or brought you a personal breakthrough?
Yeah, several.
Pick a good one for us, Joel.
Oh, well, you know, the one that comes to mind, I remember being in New York. It was my first time meeting India Hari. We were writing music, and she invited me to this kirtan.
Yeah.
And I'd never been to a kirtan. Do you know what that is? Do you know what kirtan is?
I've heard it, but it's, you know, not coming to me, of course, right now, but yes.
So forgive me if this is your tradition, because it's not mine, and I don't know a whole lot, but
Yeah.
it's sacred music. It's kind of worship for some of the Eastern traditions, and there's
Oh, yes. Okay, now it's coming back to me. Yes.
Yeah. And so we're sitting there, and this woman, Tina Malia, is playing and singing beautiful music. And at first they want you to sing along, and I'm like, okay, I don't know Sanskrit. So I'm like mumbling the words, and eventually I get uncomfortable and I kind of stop. And then I start coughing. And it's like, it was kind of like a little distracting because I was coughing a lot, but I couldn't hold it back. And then India leans over to me and she says, you know why you're coughing, right? And I was like, choked on my water? Like, I don't know. And, and she's like, no, it's because you won't sing. Sing. And I was like, okay. And this is like India, right? I like love her. And so I'm like, okay, I started singing, and I opened to the music, and I opened to the experience. And I definitely didn't cough again, but I could feel this big loving energy moving me as I'm sitting there, like physically moving me, my body swaying. And we did this, for the remainder of the show, an hour and a half. And I remember going back to the place I was staying at, and I couldn't sleep because there was something that had shifted in me, and I didn't know how to name it. And I remember saying that night, it's like, I don't know what just happened, but I want people to experience what I do that way, where it shifts something in their energy, where it shifts something in the way they think, shifts something in the way that they show up in the world for the better. And that was a huge shift for me, because since that day, it's been my focus, a big part of my meditation practice, a big part of kind of bringing all of these things together, like the sense memory with the guitar, the meditation, the intention with sharing, to remember that you can choose your state. But that was a huge breakthrough for me to experience, have what's the word? Qualia? I think it's like the wisdom of experience, to know that someone can be playing, 50 feet in front of you and literally move your body with their loving energy and have a positive impact on your life. Right?
Wow.
And it shifted everything for me. Right. And so that was my breakthrough experience.
Wow. That's really something. And it's interesting. Last year, my husband and I set an intention that before last year started, that I wanted to go to a lot of music events last year. I wanted to see a ton of concerts. I wanted to see my friends play. I got I had the privilege of seeing a couple of the musicians like yourself that have been on the show. I got to see them in person, and we ended up going, I think it was like 60 something concerts total last year. We went to a lot. But there's always these moments when like you're just sort of enjoying the show. And one of the best examples I have for this was when we saw Duran Duran, and packed arena, and everybody's, of course, great music, everybody's dancing, singing, everything else. But when they got to the song Ordinary World, and everybody, like, there was not a seat in the house that was not singing along with this song, and everybody standing and singing and crying. And I mean, I don't know, but I was crying. There's something so powerful, though, about like the collective experience where music is concerned, when all those voices, nobody cared that they couldn't sing. Nobody cared who they voted for. Nobody cared about anything except that moment. And it was one of them. I just took me away. I keep going back to the video I took with my phone, where you could see everybody's phones lit up and everybody singing. And it just takes you somewhere. It's so amazing. Well, tell us, Joel, what do you have going on musically? How can people be part of your Beautiful Souls community, if you have room for all of us that now want to come be in Joel's energy? So tell everybody about what you have going on.
Sure. Right now, I am actually working on a couple of new projects. One's my own, and I'm also co-writing with India Ari, and it's all healing medicine music. And I'm not sure exactly when these are coming out, but hopefully the end of this year, beginning of next year. And if they want to connect with me in the Beautiful Souls online community, we meditate every morning at 7:30 a.m. I guide you through mindfulness practices that help you return to your heart. And you can learn more about all of it at thesoulcalledjoel.com.
Love it. I love it. Joel, thank you so much for coming back and sharing. I know first time you were on, we talked a lot of music and everything you played for us and everything else. And I'm so glad to showcase this part of what you do as well, because there's so many of us that are part of this network that are we love all the things. We're very multi-passionate here. And so it's always great to have people back on and, show that other side of things. But everything just ties together so beautifully. And I think we shared that here today. So thank you so much, Joel, for being here. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a true pleasure.
Absolutely. Listen, everybody, if you were touched by today's discussion, I encourage you to connect with Joel. All of his links are provided in the show notes below. Whether you're interested in his mindfulness coaching, Beautiful Souls community, music, all of that, I promise you will find something that speaks to your heart. And of course, the breakthroughs don't stop here. We're taking a short break next Friday, but mark your calendars for Friday, March 7th, when we welcome back Jeff Brandeis to the show. We'll be catching up on his journey and diving into his exciting shift into the world of virtual meetings and, more importantly, engagement. So if you're looking to elevate the way you connect with others in your business or personal life, you don't want to miss it. I want to thank you all for tuning in today, for being part of this incredible journey, and for showing up for yourselves today, for carving out a little space for us. We appreciate you. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to do all the things like subscribe, share, so we can continue to spread this message. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and I want to remind you to make every day a great day for a breakthrough. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.